Welcome back to another episode of the Bear Trap on the Boomer Bust channel, Bears podcast by a Bears fan. I'm your host Terry, and today doing a quick recap of our fourth preseason game technically, but third official against the Kansas City Chiefs. So, I'm not going to take too much time on this one. It was the preseason game, of course, but as most of you might know, that we had most of our starters not playing. So I think that's the place to start off with, because that's the conversation that a lot of people want to talk about. So number one, I am super busy going through, again, transitioning, a bunch of transition. Let's put it that way. And so, I'm not able, or I haven't been able, I should say, to hear if Matt Nagy kind of explained the situation or if anybody really talked about it. So forgive me. If they did, then that's fine. You guys correct me in the comments, and I'm not really going to speculate or anything. I'm just going to kind of give you what I think. But, if you didn't hear, third preseason game is usually when you get the dress rehearsal, as they call it, for most of the starters to play a good amount. And then everybody sits the fourth preseason game, then you go into the season. And so, Matt Nagy decided to have most of the starters, not all of them, but most of the starters on both sides not play. And so, a lot of people going back and forth. Now, what I think will heighten this conversation is the fact that Andy Reid pretty much did the opposite and had his starters play for about 3.5 quarters. I thought after halftime they would be done, but maybe in a more traditional sense, I guess this was a dress rehearsal for them, and so they were out there for majority of the game. So that just kind of heightened the difference when you saw the Bears with their second stringers playing against the Chiefs starters most of the game. And so you got guys like Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce making plays, whatever. So that is already interesting. As far as what I think, I'm not, I'm okay either way. I'm not totally against it, not totally, for it. I think there's benefits, to both sides, of course, as most things. Again, I haven't heard Nagy's rationale, but I have heard that they liked the practice they had. And, so, okay. I mean, that, for me, that's not enough. I mean, practice reps are one thing, but live reps are a whole nother thing. And some people are like, well, Trubisky needs as much reps as he can get in this new offense, and the receivers need reps with Trubisky and all this stuff. So, I don't know. Honestly, I could be convinced either way. I'm not going to sit here and try to convince you or tell you that this is a terrible thing or this is a great thing. It's not, and it's also not something brand new that just Nagy did. Now, interestingly, people point out the Rams did it last year, and that's all the Bears have been compared to. Is so annoying to me. So this doesn't help that case, but, again, the Packers set their start. So it's not some Nagy made up, himself, but it seems to be a little bit of a growing trend. And I don't know. I mean, I go back and forth with the preseason. Like I've already said before, that everyone keeps talking about why you have them out there, they got hurt, or it was stupid, you got hurt in a meaningless game. So what if game one you go out and get hurt, so what? I mean, that to me, that argument is silly. Like, you could get hurt in any game. And so what if it's the regular season? It means something. Being hurt is being hurt. And so you get hurt in practice or anything. So I don't really dig that. And so I'm not saying play the starters full 4 games, but all this kind of pussyfooting around in the preseason is just kind of annoying to me. But, yeah, so people are like, oh, well, the Bears have more games than usual, but did the starters really play that much in the Hall of Fame game at all? So that doesn't really count. So you're talking about 2 small sample sizes for the starters. And I don't know. I think if it was me personally, I know I would have played them at some capacity. I wouldn't just set them the whole time, but I'm not going to say and tell you it's a terrible decision. So anyway, we got a lot of fringe players, a lot of backups, position battles, people getting to really go out there and, get extended time. So Yeah, so number one, let me start off with something that isn't Bears specific, but it is annoying to me. And that's this whole thing with offenses and penalties. So the Bears start off with illegal kick procedure, which puts us on the 35-yard line. Then we get a nice play with a face mask, and that's 15-yard penalty. So all of a sudden, we're, more than halfway down the field. And, again, this isn't Bear specific. It just reminded me of like last year. And I'm pretty sure this year where the NFL is just so much. Everybody talks about offense, but it's so much about penalties. I guarantee if someone broke it down, you would see that most of these drives are moving because of penalties. And it's not that offenses are, explosive play. It's not that they're steady driving. They do that here and there, but I guarantee you most drives is something to do with a penalty. And we all know in the vertical plays, or you should know, they're taught to put it up sometimes just to try to draw a flag because it's at the spot of the foul and you pretty much equivalent like a 60-yard pass or whatever. So anyway, the whole thing with penalties, and then people praise, the Bears moved up and down the field that drive, or good drive by. I'm like, really? I mean, and it's not to knock what they did, but a lot of times when people move up down the field or they score, the fans quickly forget how it happened. It's like, oh yeah, they were doing good. No, they were getting penalties. So, and it's not every time and it's not every team. I'm just saying, it's too prevalent is what I'm saying. It's annoying. But anyway, moving on from that. So Kevin White, the man of the hour everybody wants to talk about, finally got a touchdown. And so I don't know if anybody saw the play because the angles they show, I saw the play, but the angles they show, you didn't really get to see how he got open. If it was my guess, I think it was a cover 2 bust where the corner's playing flat, but the safety didn't get over because he hit it in the hole between the corner and safety, but like the safety just wasn't there. So, you see that sometimes with cover 2, but I would like to see if that's what it was or if Kevin just beat the man or how that happened. But Kevin White got a touchdown. Everybody went crazy. I'm sure everybody's going to get in the comments like, it's just preseason. No one cares. But hey, everyone cared when you didn't see him play, like whether it was we didn't see a preseason. I need to visually see it to know and understand that he can actually play football. Like seriously. And so now if you saw it, like, oh, well, it's the preseason, so that doesn't matter. Of course, that's how they are. But anyway, Kevin White, was able to do that, and he played a lot less than I thought he would, to be honest. I thought he would, he was out there, but I don't know. He just wasn't featured a whole bunch. But that was nice to see him kind of have a play finally. And then the other receiver, Javon Wims. So a lot of people were making buzz about him in the Hall of Fame game. Well, a lot of fans, I should say. But if you've been listening to this channel or if you go back and listen to the things, from the draft, you know that for me, that's not a surprise. I was a Javon Wims fan from the beginning. That was one guy I was hoping the Bears would, go out and he went a lot later than I thought he would. So it was a nice pickup. But as far as receivers, he was one of the sleepers that I like. So, I'm not saying what he's going to be going forward. Because again, you got to keep in mind, who they're going against. But still, I think he has the, skill set to do something. And early on, he's going against, Brashard Breeland, who is, not fast. That's all I'll say about that. Not to take it away from Wims, who of course has to do the things, but Breeland's not the fastest dude. And Wims, that is the one thing I guess people really had an issue with, cause he went up a lot and won 50-50 balls, but his routes weren't great and he didn't have the speed to like separate, at an elite level. So while he did do a lot of damage at Georgia, they didn't know if he could, separate at the NFL level. So either way, whether he's going against Breeland or not, he showed off, some skills that people needed to see. So Wims was nice. I never thought he was not going to make the roster, but with 7 rounds, you never know. I just thought his talent was too good at a position we need. So, I think Wims has definitely made his case, and then they took him out after his last big play. Like, all right, dude, you good. So we don't want you to get hurt. So that was kind of fun to see that. James Daniels. So James Daniels started at center, but when you got towards the end of the third, they brought in Haranis Grasu, and James Daniels went over to guard, at left guard actually. So that was nice to see him finally get some reps at guard. And I thought he was pretty good, man. You know, I've said what I felt about James Daniels. The only thing I'll say, and this might worry me about the Bears, is that I think he definitely hold his own at the point of attack and pass rush. And I think he could hold his own as a base blocker or drive blocker, but I don't think he's going to ever be elite at it. Like, he's not going to be Zach Martin or, you know, Yonda, any of those guys. He's not going to be a power blocker. Cause his strength is, like we said before, going lateral, being able to zone and reach people and get to the next level, all that. He's really, really quick. And I think he's strong, but he's not a drive blocker. So there was some plays where it was drive block and he wasn't great at it. I mean, he still fought to get in good position, but, you know, sometimes he's moved off, his spot. And that worries me because I've always kind of thought this, but definitely now with the additions we have, the line is a mix of some guys that are good at zone and some guys that are good at power. And I talked about this with Cody Whitehair, where, like I said, he's mobile and he can get to a block and like seal it off, but he's not a drive blocker per se. And so you got the same thing with James Daniels. But then you got a guy like Kyle Long, who you know is more of a smash mouth type guy. Kush, we still kind of figuring out what he's great at. And then Charles Leno and them. So and we seen with the scheme that there's a mix of zone and power, which is fine for a mix. But honestly, I never like when a team is so all over the place with their run scheme. I like a team to really have an identity of what type of run scheme they do. You can have mix up and change ups and offshoots, but you know, I don't know. We'll see. It's tough because I think early on it was very heavy outside zone, and now we're seeing a little more of the power game. So, Nagy, everybody wants to believe he's not showing his cards. So it's hard to say. It's really hard to say at this point, but that's something I'm just worried about. Figuring out what the identity is going forward, because again, and then Grasu, even him, like, reason people don't like him is you gotta hold your point at the center, which he doesn't do well or hasn't done well. So I give you that, but also he's a zone block. He's a full Oregon zone blocker. And so not all the time did we do those type of plays. So he never looked good. So it's going to be interesting to see what type of scheme we mesh with, and if we're going to have the line be able to mesh together, because some of these guys are different at different things. Yeah, so that's with the offense. With the defense, I'll say also about the offense with Matt Nagy. Again, we don't know, and I want to address, because some people have been saying this, and I think it's absolutely hilarious. People who are suggesting that Nagy and Trubisky were like faking that Trubisky doesn't know what he's doing. Not does he know what he's doing, but people were just suggesting that Trubisky is like putting on an act to seem like he's not, super efficient in the offense. And so they're doing that to, kind of catch people off guard, which I thought was absolutely hilarious. Some of these Bears fans go way off the left end, because even if that's true, it's only going to work for one game. Yes, it's a Packers big game, first game of the season. But why would you compromise the whole preseason to just pretend like you don't know how to play in the offense? That's just, no one's going to do that. And that's why I always talk about football and people sabotaging stuff. It takes 11 people on a unit. You going to get all of them to fall into the role the same way? No. So I think that was silly, but the truth is he definitely could be hiding what type of tendencies and plays he want to do. So, it'll be interesting, but I will say all in all so far, I've liked what I've seen, because they didn't just make stuff up out of thin air. Some of that stuff is going to be in, the schemes that they run. And I think just the passing tree, I like the concepts that I'm seeing. These are concepts that I like. A lot of, kind of flood routes, a lot of crosser routes. It was a nice play, I believe it was to Daniel Brown or Browniker is one of them, but, you saw like kind of a little tight end sit, and then there was a dig over the top. And so man coverage that drug the corner all the way across with the receiver, and then right underneath the tight end settles down. And really you could beat that in the zone, you could beat that in the man, but in the man what happens is since the corner following the receiver, tight end catches it, turns around, there's nothing but open space. So just different things like that is some of the stuff I appreciate as an offensive coach. So I really like what we're doing pass scheme wise. And I do like the formations and kind of, some of the matchup is setting up. However, again, with the blocking schemes, we'll see, but it looks like screen game is also going to be a big part of what we do. So looking forward to it. Now defense, real quick, it's nobody that really stood out that I wanted to talk about, but I will say, much like I've been saying this whole preseason, the backup linebacker group kind of worries me. I think the backup secondary group worries me, which is weird that I didn't think about it because the starting secondary group isn't that inspiring to me either. But yeah, definitely after we get past Fuller and Prince, it's going to be rough. I mean, yes, you got Callahan, but again, we talked about him kind of being your nickel, but you know, Hall, Houston Carson, all these guys. I mean, whoever ends up making the roster, they seem very grabby, which a lot of D-backs are, and they just don't seem very speedy. So that kind of worries me what our secondary will look like if we have any type of injuries, especially to one of our starting corners. So, I don't know, but we'll see. Definitely a good game though. Of course, they put up points, so everybody's excited to see that. And it was nice to see them go against a starting Chiefs unit on both sides for most of the game. So that definitely has to give you, a little bit of excitement going forward. So, we'll see. But, go to comment section. What stood out to you during the game? Go get the convo started, share it around, thumbs up, subscribe, and remember, stay up and bear down.